What's going on, everybody? It's Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com here with episode 13 of the Morning Joint, filling in for Joey Bravo today as he's somewhere surfing around California, not actually surfing, driving somewhere up in NorCal, checking out some cannabis grows with very limited Wi-Fi as it is. And I'm joined by co-host Hannah Gershowitz. How you doing today, Hannah?
Hello, doing good. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon if you're on the East Coast.
I know you're like midday getting ready for lunch. I'm just like getting the
Yeah.
crust out of my eyes out here on the West Coast. Man, we had a somewhat eventful and somewhat uneventful last week in both the cannabis and music realm. I think there's some good topics going on, but at the same time, it's not one of those weeks I feel like that was as action packed as some other weeks.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't too crazy. I think it's probably mainly because with Coachella and everything going on, I feel like the media just focuses on that, so all the other news kind of slips under the rug.
Right. And we're not talking about anything Coachella today because that's all that I've been seeing online is Coachella. So we got some topics outside of that in the music and cannabis realm. I will kick you off for a quick second and I will run through some of the cannabis topics that we have for today.
Sounds good. Take it away.
All right, Hannah will be joining us back for some music topics here in a moment. As I stated earlier, filling in for Joey today on the Morning Joint. Topic number one is legal cannabis. Recreational cannabis sales started in New Jersey this past week. I know that we had talked about this was on the docket for coming up in one of these last morning joints, but it has happened. There were lines outside of buildings. Since opening. I believe one of the dispensaries, Rise, they did a 6 a.m. opening for legal weed, and there was a line outside. They said, I believe the line outside was stretched 60 customers long, in addition, past the capacity of 75 people already inside. They, man, the parking lot was beyond full. And I believe that they said eighths were priced around $60, which was surprising that the price was honestly that low. I'm curious. I don't have very much faith in the quality of the product that was on hand for day one. Usually, when cannabis is legalized, the measurement happens, it's legalized. They set a day for recreation stores to be open, and it takes a while for that supply chain to fill up products. Being out here in Washington, I remember I didn't shop at a legal store beyond, I went once for the novelty of it, but I didn't shop at a legal store for around maybe a year. Just it took a while for prices to stabilize and quality products to get in. When you look at cannabis, it's an agriculture good. It has a long life cycle. If you're like, okay, you can start growing now, you're not going to have finished product for 4 to 6 months at the very least. And if you're in a brand new facility, you likely don't have many things dialed in. So it takes a while for products, for the quality of flower to reach a certain level, to stock shelves, and to be in consistent rotation and have these facilities and the supply chain just dialed in. So New Jersey is likely a year away from seeing somewhat of a stabilized cannabis system, but recreational cannabis consumers, I'm sure, are thrilled. You can now go into a store, safely purchase cannabis whenever you want, pending supply. That's a pretty amazing thing, and it seems like the people of New Jersey are pretty excited. Definitely, in reading some news articles, some quotes from some consumers, they were noting that it felt better, it was safer, it was just exciting to go into a store and ask questions about cannabis and learn as far as THC content, indica versus sativa, strains, and genetics. It's an exciting time. So big shout out to New Jersey. New York is next. The next topic we have today is states that have legalized, or where cannabis is decriminalized but not fully legal. We did an article on Respect My Region this past week. And so this is one of those unique circumstances where a state decriminalizes cannabis, but for whatever reason can't quite pass the legislation to recreational legalize it. It's still awesome to see, because when you decriminalize the plant, that means that people are really not catching serious charges. If you get, usually in states where cannabis is decriminalized, if you get caught with cannabis, whether it's paraphernalia or possession, it's a simple ticket. It's not something that's going to go on your record. It's it makes it harder to get a felony for personal use of cannabis, which we see in some of these more strict Bible Beltish states. And honestly, when you look at over half the country having some form of legal cannabis and decriminalization in so many states, it's just clear that nobody should be catching a felony. No one should be going to prison. No one should be losing their job over cannabis, unless it's a job where you can't be impaired, similar to alcohol or something. I could get that case. But anyways, on to the states. Delaware is one of the states, has an existing medical cannabis program. It's decriminalized, yet recreational cannabis is not quite there. Possession of up to 1 ounce will result in a $100 fine and no possibility of jail. Previously, possession of cannabis was a misdemeanor, punishable by a $575 fine and up to 3 months in jail. So decriminalization right there brings that down to a $100 ticket. That's like a speeding ticket, and you're not going to jail. It's very similar. Decriminalized cannabis looks like a speeding ticket for those out there that are familiar with that. Sadly, I'm all too familiar with that. Hawaii is a state that's not legal for recreational use. It is decriminalized, and medical cannabis is legal there. This is interesting because I know Hawaii passed this a long time ago. I'm not quite sure the exact specifics, but I thought, and I know a lot of people thought, that we would see recreational cannabis in Hawaii by now. They just have a laid back culture, the beach, the vibes. It seems to match cannabis very well. And they were early in passing medical. But it's interesting that recreational cannabis is not there. Who knows when we'll see it? But right now, I believe Hawaii allows up to 3 grams of cannabis. And with up to 3 grams of cannabis, you will only get a $130 fine. 3 grams is pretty weird. So if you got a gram on you, a bowl or a dub sack, you are good. But if you got an eighth, man, you're flirting with some higher fines there. Louisiana passed decriminalization last year in 2021. The state has expanded its medicinal program over the last year and is working on long-term legislation. Citizens will be penalized for possession up to 14 grams, a half ounce of cannabis, with a fine of only $100. And people unable to pay this fine will have the opportunity to perform community service or pay in installments. That is awesome because we're seeing a southern state that has more lenient decriminalization than Hawaii, which I was just saying has some chill vibes. And again, a $100 fine. And if you can't pay the fine, you can do community service. If you can't do community service, or if you don't want to do that, you can do payment installments on a $100 fine. That is incredible to see a southern state have that. But I'm not sure the exact penalties, but penalties for possession over 14 grams remains harsh. So make sure you're only rolling with a half zip if you're in Louisiana. Maryland is another state that's decriminalized but does not have recreational cannabis. Let's see. It's been decriminalized since 2014. I'm not really sure too many more stipulations past that, but if you're in Maryland, it's okay to have a little bit of dro on you. Minnesota's medical program has expanded greatly over the last couple of years. The state has decriminalized the possession of weed. You can have up to 42.5 grams or less and only be punished as a petty misdemeanor. This does not apply to resinous forms of cannabis, so I believe that's just flower. But 42.5 grams, I mean, you can be rolling around with, almost 2 ounces and just get a misdemeanor. That is definitely different than, when your boy caught a misdemeanor over a little over a decade ago in Washington. In Mississippi legislation voted against the bill for a medical cannabis program. Luckily, it's one of the states where weed is decriminalized. First-time possession of 30 grams or less is punishable by a $250 fine instead of jail time. So if you get caught for weed for the first time and have a little bit over an ounce, it's a $250 fine. Again, a southern state with a somewhat lenient charge for cannabis conviction. It says as long as the offender provides proof of identity and a written promise to appear in court, they will not be arrested. However, possession of paraphernalia, like the baggy cannabis is in, remains a criminal offense punishable by up to 6 months. That is really unique. A lot of my understanding of the law and through my legal issues, the way it's wrote allows you of how you get punished or how you can get off. So it sounds like if you have weed in the bag, the weed isn't the issue, but the bag itself is. Oh man, the law is always going to get you when it's going to get you. Missouri is decriminalized possession of 10 grams or less of cannabis. It is punishable by fine only. Any amount greater than that is punishable by jail time. Additionally, the offense is still considered an official offense in the form of misdemeanor. Nebraska is one of the few states where cannabis is fully illegal. There's no medical, no recreational, but possession of 1 ounce or less for a first-time infraction is punishable by a $300 fine, as well as a possible court-ordered drug education course. A second conviction could result in a fine of $500. And lastly, subsequent convictions may result in up to 7 days in jail and a fine of $500. A drug ordered education class if you have cannabis. As somebody that has been to one of those, it is really funny. You know, I was caught with like an eighth when I was like 19. They sent me to a drug and alcohol abuse class where I sat around a bunch of people talking about hardcore drugs and like their third DUI. And the circle finally got to me. I felt like I was in How High. Uh, the circle finally got to me. I was like, I just had a little bit of weed, and everyone looked at me. I was crazy, but I didn't want to go there. The state sent me there, man. New Hampshire is another state. Enough of my personal past. New Hampshire decriminalized cannabis. Penalties are reduced up to having 3/4 of an ounce for adults 18 and up. The first 2 offenses will result in a $100 fine if within 3 years. Lastly, the third offense will have a $300 fine, and any others will have up to $1,200 in fines and be charged as a misdemeanor. So New Hampshire's really letting you get caught with bud over and over and over, and it still honestly is just showing some money out of your pocket. North Carolina, cannabis is fully illegal in North Carolina. A half ounce or less will result in a class 3 misdemeanor. However, you will not receive any jail time regardless of your criminal record. Shout out North Carolina for that. North Dakota is one of the many states where weed is decriminalized. Possession up to a half ounce classified as an infraction, punishable with a max fine of $1,000. Ohio, if you have individuals possessing less than 3.5 ounces, 100 grams, giving 20 grams or less than another person, or growing less than 100 grams are considered minor misdemeanors. The offenses are punishable by a maximum fine of $150. This is not a jailable offense, but you can get a suspended driver's license for 6 months to 5 years. Eeks. Rhode Island, small amounts of cannabis are decriminalized. Offense is punishable for $150 for first offense. If you have 3 citations within 18 months, then you may be charged with a misdemeanor. This is very interesting. A lot of these states, we're seeing some super lenient that allows people to get caught multiple times while the state just collects a check. And some of these states are written really weird where it's 3 grams instead of 3.5, or 26 or 40 instead of having 2 ounces. All these weird amounts where I feel like you're going to catch people having a common amount. Or the one case of Mississippi, the weed is legal, but the baggie it isn't, or the weed is just punishable fine, but the baggie's jail time. You see these weird laws that's like, hey, on paper this looks okay, but the law is still going to get you if it's going to get you. Very common across these states. I think it gives wiggle room for lawyers to get people in and out. Anyways, on to the next topic. A press release came out from Cannabis Talk 101 this week. We featured it on our site. Family Matters star Jaleel White, who famously played Steve Urkel, sat down on Cannabis Talk 101 podcast talking about his life, his entrance into cannabis, how he met Brad from Mel Shanker from 710 Labs on an airplane, and that spun his cannabis line, It's Purple, with 710 Labs. We had Brad on an early episode of the RMR podcast and talked a little bit about that. But Jaleel White had quite a life being in fame, the era he was in. He got to hang out with Michael Jackson, Prince. He got to hang out with so many iconic individuals over the last couple decades. When pressed for who he would want to smoke weed with that he has not smoked weed with, he named Jesus. He said he has some questions to ask him. Interesting episode. Check out more on Cannabis Talk 101. Our next topic, Beard Bro Farms shared an article about how cannabis reduces prescription drug use rates in legal states. It's not surprising to anyone that's been around this, but this is a great type of headline and some great study out there to provide just positive case study for cannabis of what the power it can really do in medicinal form and weeding people off of pharmaceutical drugs, which have had just such a negative impact across this kind of the globe, honestly. So they're showing the numbers don't lie. Significant numbers of patients were able to reduce their meds with cannabis use. Depression, 11%, anxiety, 12%, chronic pain, 8%. I expected that to be higher. Seizures, 10%, psychosis, 11%, sleep, 11%. I also expected that to be higher. And unfortunately, it noted while cannabis is often suggested as a way to treat glaucoma and nausea, the study found no measurable changes in prescribing it for those medicinal issues. And I feel like it works for nausea, but I don't have any scientific studies, just personal research there. So there's still a call for more federal research. We really need the federal government, Biden administration, where you at? To declassify cannabis so the FDA and federal organizations can do more research that will ultimately, I believe, uh, allow greater access to cannabis. There's also been some conflicting opinions on that coming away from the Benzinga conference. We won't get into that. On 420, Berlin hosted a pro-cannabis rally that demanded immediate cannabis legalization. I know there's been a big push in Germany as of late to legalize cannabis, and Europe. There's momentum sweeping in Europe, and some of these states, or excuse me, states, I'm in the wrong continent, countries have really been pushing for cannabis. And Germany's not only one where people in Germany have been pushing, but other people outside of Germany have been pushing. You listen to German hip hop music, the people out protesting in the streets. There is a big call for cannabis to be legalized in Germany. Will we see it sometime soon? Time will tell. And with that, that wraps up our cannabis news for the day. I'm going to bring Hannah back on to go over some music topics for the rest of the morning joins.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for going over all of that, Mitch. Some
Yep,
exciting news. Very excited about the New Jersey legalization. I'm heading up to New York over the summer, so I'm thinking I might take a trip over there and see what's up.
absolutely. And New York's not too far around the curve, and I believe you can smoke weed anywhere in New York where you
Yeah.
can smoke cigarettes. So that's I
Yep.
don't know if that's just the city or if that's the state. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I know it's definitely in the city.
Okay. Well, with that, I will hop up out of here and let you take it on home with the music topics.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Got some music topics to go over today. We got some mainstream and some emerging artists to talk about. So I'm going to start off with some of the more mainstream stuff that y'all might be more familiar with. So we got Pusha T. Okay, so Pusha T addresses Drake's alleged diss on leaked Jack Harlow track. So if you're into hip hop, you're probably aware that Pusha T and Drake have a bit of beef. Pusha T has been a longtime collaborator with Kanye West, a part of his label and everything, and Kanye has some beef with Drake. So Pusha T also has a little beef with Drake. He put out, I don't remember how long ago it was by now, maybe a few years ago. They had put out Pusha T had put out a diss track towards Drake on SoundCloud, and then Drake put one back, like posted one also. So it looks like there's more coming up from this years later. It looks like Drake was featured on a song with Jack Harlow and an unreleased track. And it sounds like Drake dissed Pusha T in this unreleased track that has been coming to the surface. Um, so let's see what Pusha T has to say about it. He talked about it on Breakfast Club, which is a I think that'd be considered a podcast. That talks about a lot of hip hop topics, interviews big artists and such. So in the interview, um, he says, "Man, you know what? I think like I even heard that and it sounds old to me. Like the flows sound old, and then it's like even what is the considered like the shots? It's like, bro, after what I've done, like the middleman talk and all that type of talk, that's not scathing for me. I'm here to like burn down everything." Um, I don't know. It sounds like Pusha T is saying that it sounds like it's an old track and it's nothing new, and he's just bringing up old stuff that they've already gone over. Um, he's saying it doesn't sound fresh, doesn't sound good. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can head over to Complex. They covered the whole interview in an article, or you can just go to YouTube to Breakfast Club and watch that whole interview. It's about 45 minutes long. Um, Next up, we got Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez news. This has been talked about for a while now. I don't know exactly when it happened, but it was sometime in 2020 that Megan Thee Stallion got shot in the foot, and it took them a little bit to figure out who exactly did it, but turns out it was Tory Lanez. I don't know why he would do that. But it's been a whole big deal, lots of back and forths of her saying one thing, him saying another thing. I mean, I believe Megan Thee Stallion, whatever she's saying, but then Tory Lanez is like, he's always kind of getting into some controversy. So I don't know. I'm surprised he's not been canceled after shooting Megan Thee Stallion in the foot. Um but this article is saying that apparently Tory Lanez offered her $1 million to keep quiet about it. Um, and let's see if she. So it looks like she went on to CBS Morning and talked about this, saying, admitting that he offered her $1 million to keep quiet. Let's see what else. Yeah, he said, "I'll give you all $1 million if you don't say nothing." And then there's medical documents that show that there was a major bullet fragment in her foot. Nothing too crazy. She's still able to walk and everything. I don't think she even had to get surgery, or they had to remove the bullet fragments. But yeah, she had to do an operation, and that's always risky. So she didn't take that $1 million. I'm not sure exactly what's happening in the case. It sounds like it's still going on. So hoping that Megan Thee Stallion gets some justice and Tory Lanez, gets what he deserves for doing something so stupid and just not right. So in some more positive news, we got Kendrick Lamar. He hasn't released an album in I think 4 or 5 years now, and he's finally announced that his new album is coming out in May, and it will be called Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. So he kind of hinted, I think it was late last year when he opened that Oklahoma website. He hinted at another album coming and that it would be his last album with Top Dog Entertainment. But when he announced that, he didn't say when the album was coming. So we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for more information. And finally, just the other day, he announced that the album will be coming on May 13th. And it was announced in a letter from the company PG Lang and posted to his Instagram, just simple saying, um, really just saying that the album's coming out and the release date, and any information about the album will be coming from this source. So don't trust any random sources saying different things about the album. It sounds like all the news is going to come straight through Kendrick Lamar and PG Lang. So very excited to see that. He actually just performed on stage with Baby Keem at Coachella. We said we weren't going to talk about Coachella, but had to bring that up. Baby Keem is Kendrick Lamar's cousin. They've collaborated on a few songs. Baby Keem is definitely one of the hottest rising artists right now. He's definitely making his way up to the big leagues with Kendrick Lamar. Definitely can compare and compete with those guys. So yeah, Kendrick just hopped on the stage with him at Coachella the other day. So that was super cool. There's some videos up online that you can find if you want to see that. Next up, we got some more emerging slash underground music to go over. We got some EDM. So Eptic is a DJ and producer that kind of produces like dubstep and like bass music, kind of blends all different genres. It's definitely more of like harder EDM where it's like more like dubstep and louder sounds and crazier drops, heavy bass. lots of drum and bass influences and all different genres in there. So Eptic, very well known in the bass music world, he just released his long anticipated multi-genre album, The End of the World, which released about a week and a half ago. It features Dylan Francis, Hall, Must Die, and Maruda, and more. It really displays like his growth and all the different genres that he's created in and is capable of blending together and all of that. So highly, highly recommend you check out this album. I've been listening to it. It's a wild ride to say the least. But on that note, he also announced his End of the World tour. Which starts, let's see, it starts May 6th in Toronto and will end July 9th in Atlanta. It's going to be all around North America. So definitely recommend checking him out if you're into that heavier EDM type music. And you can go to Respect My Region to read more about that and learn more about the tour and such. Last up, we got Problem, who is a rapper. Rapper Problem executive produces 106 and Spark, which is a new cannabis and music talk show. So 106 and Spark launched on April 10th of this year, and it's being executive produced by Problem. It's a 20-minute cannabis and music talk show that just goes over cannabis education, music discovery, pop culture, black culture, among much more. The the talk show will feature celebrity interviews as well as a music video of the week segment and a top 5 countdown segment. Lots of different things. Also joining Problem will be Tammy Pettigrew, who's also known as the Cannabis Cutie, and then Sean Chris Spooner, who's also known as Spoon. So to watch this new series, it will be, let's see, it will be on Altered TV. So that's ALTRD.TV. And that's where you'll find all the new episodes, all the upcoming episodes. And this is definitely something new. A lot of people talk about music and cannabis. We're here talking about music and cannabis right now. But this is an it's an official TV show. It's not just a live stream or some short form content here and there. This is a full-blown talk show, TV show talking about music and cannabis, what we love, with people that, know the plant, are educated, know the culture, know music, and can just talk about it and educate about it and etc. So if you're interested, if you like our morning join, if you like hearing us talk about music and cannabis here, you would definitely love hearing about music and cannabis from those guys. So we definitely recommend you going over there and checking that out. And that aired, let's see, it launched on April 10th, so you should already be able to see at least one episode up on there. That is all from me for music news, cannabis news. Wrapping up the episode, we'll have Mitch come hop back in here. There he is.
I'm excited about the new Kendrick Lamar album, man, coming out of nowhere. That man's been silent as hell for like
Mhm.
3 years, and then just came up out of nowhere with a single Instagram post like, I'm dropping in
Yeah,
2 weeks.
and I'm glad that he wasn't like, "I'm dropping, like, 6 months from now." He's like, "I'm dropping in, like, 3 weeks, like, be ready."
Dude, that's the exciting. That's why you look at like movie trailers. You see a movie trailer and you're like, dude, I gotta wait till next summer for this thing to come out.
Yeah.
But that's one of the cool things about music when these artists nowadays are just like, yeah, we're coming out, in 2 weeks. So I thought that's awesome. It's exciting. For a second, I was a little worried. I'm not sure if that'll count, if that'll hurt Jack Harlow because I know he's supposed to drop the week before and he's been getting
Oh,
all this buzz. And a guy like Kendrick, at least he didn't say the same day. He would have came and stole all the thunder he's been building for. So he's gonna let that man breathe a little bit. But
yeah.
it'll be exciting to get a new album from Kung Fu Kenny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be very talked about, very excited about that one.
So do you feel like, we barely talked about it, but you feel like you're missing out on Coachella? Obviously, we're not out there, or we didn't get out there. Is that you go to a lot of festivals? I don't, so I don't care
Yeah.
about missing any sort of live events. Coachella is something you've been to? Is it something that you feel like you're missing out on, or?
I haven't been yet. I mean, it's never been, like, a festival that's been in, like, the top of my list to attend. I think, like, if I attend, I'm gonna do it right, where I'm gonna, like, pay for, like, the super VIP where you get golf carted around and all that, like, I've just heard a lot of, like I've heard that people that have the VIP and all that, like, they've had great experiences and it's very comfortable, but then I hear, like, experience from, like, the GA where it's, like, the line to get in took, like, 3 hours to get in, and the food options were so expensive, and it was so hot and so dirty, and it's, like, all festivals have their things, but I think
Yeah,
if I'm gonna, like, go to Coachella, like, I'm gonna go all out, so I don't feel like I missed out too much. It's more pop focused anyways, and
yeah.
I'm more into hip hop, EDM, and stuff. But I'm sure I definitely wanna make it out one day, but not too much FOMO for this one.
Yeah, on the bucket list, I saw an article where they were like talking about things about Coachella you didn't know, and that's what they're like. How hot? I know Palm Springs is so hot out there. That's got to be difficult. But they said it's so dirty and dusty. They said that they wet down the dust so it doesn't blow up, but then everyone has to walk
Yeah,
through mud.
that's what I was just talking about with, like, Okeechobee Music Festival that we just went to. It was so dusty. Everywhere was so dusty, it was like you could literally see it was like fog, but gray, it was really bad. So I was like, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, because 'cause I've been to festivals where it's, like, really dirty, but it rained, like, the day before, so it
Mhm.
wasn't dusty, and I'm like, they literally could just spray down the ground a little bit so it doesn't keep picking up all that dust, but they didn't, so it was like it was really bad, so I'm glad to hear Coachella at least, like I'd rather it be a little muddy than, like, kicking up dust for me to
Right.
breathe in, honestly.
Yeah, it gets in your nose, it gets in your eyes, man. It's just, yeah, it's
Yeah,
difficult.
it's
So,
bad.
well, that wraps it up for episode 13 of the Morning Joint. Appreciate you jumping on here, Hannah, and everyone that tuned in watching. We'll be back next Monday morning, and I believe we have an episode of the RMR podcast with myself here a little bit later today.
Awesome. Everybody
Sweet.
have a great Monday.